In the morning sunlight filtering through the lace curtains, Emily Johnson woke up before her alarm clock went off. She was good at getting up early. Looking quietly at her sleeping husband Michael beside her, she smiled softly. Michael seemed to be sleeping more deeply than usual, probably because he had been reading work documents until late the night before. 10 years had passed since their marriage. They hadn't been blessed with children, but they had grown accustomed to their life together and had found their own kind of happiness. Emily worked part-time at the local supermarket, Fresh Mart, 3 days a week, mornings only. She usually worked the register, and chatting with regular customers was one of her pleasures. Michael worked in the sales department at a major company called Atlas Corporation, earning a stable income. Their life was never flashy, but even with a mortgage, they had enough left over to save a little each month. While making coffee in the kitchen, Emily looked out the window at the neighboring house. Dorothy McDonald lived there. She had lost her husband 3 years ago and lived alone, but she always worked diligently in her garden and was friendly with the neighbors. She was particularly close to Emily, sometimes visiting with homemade cookies. Dorothy's warm personality and the advice she gained from her rich life experience were precious to Emily. "Good morning, honey," Michael appeared in the kitchen with sleepy eyes. Wearing dark blue pajamas, he had his usual stubble. "Good morning. I just made coffee," Emily handed her husband a cup. "You were up late last night. A new project?" "Yeah, that's right. It's a bit of a complicated case," Michael answered vaguely while sipping his coffee. "But don't worry. It's going smoothly." Recently, Emily had noticed that Michael's arrival time had become earlier than before. Previously, it wasn't unusual for him to come home after 8 at night, but for the past 2 or 3 months, he'd been coming home around 6 o'clock. She thought sales work must be demanding, but perhaps it had become a bit easier. However, she was slightly concerned that he sometimes seemed tired. "What time do you expect to be home today?" Emily asked while toasting bread for breakfast. "Around 6 as usual, I guess." "Are you working today?" "Yes, from 10 to 2. I'll be home in the afternoon, so I can prepare dinner properly." The two ate breakfast quietly. Spreading butter and jam on toast and drinking orange juice, they discussed today's plans lightly. It was an ordinary but warm morning scene. Emily was grateful for such everyday moments. It might not be a glamorous life, but the time spent with her loved one was irreplaceable. At 8 o'clock, Michael got ready and left for work. He wore his usual attire, a navy suit with a blue tie and brown leather shoes. Emily saw her husband off at the front door and they exchanged a light kiss. "Have a good day. Be careful." "Thank you. You work hard too." After Michael left by car, Emily finished her housework and then headed to work herself. The small supermarket rooted in the local community was like a second home to her. She got along well with her colleagues, and work was never stressful. Rather, it was precious time that gave her a sense of fulfillment that housework alone couldn't provide. In the evening, Michael came home around 6 as promised. While sharing the dinner Emily had made, they talked about what had happened that day. Nothing special had occurred, it was just an ordinary day. However, Emily felt that the accumulation of such ordinary days was what supported their married life. At night, before going to bed, she quietly offered a prayer of gratitude for this day. One morning, Emily woke up at 6 a.m. as usual. Outside the window, birds were chirping, announcing the beginning of a new day. After confirming that Michael was breathing quietly beside her, she slipped out of bed without making any noise. Walking toward the kitchen, Emily was thinking about their recent lifestyle rhythm. Since Michael's homecoming time had become earlier, the time they spent together as a couple had increased. Previously, she often spent evenings alone until late at night, but now they had dinner together around 6:30 and then spent time watching TV or doing light reading. This was a happy change. While turning on the coffee maker, Emily looked at Dorothy's house through the window. Being an early riser, she was already watering flowers in the garden. Seeing her methodical figure made Emily feel somehow reassured. Having someone like Dorothy living next door was truly reassuring. "Good morning, Emily," Michael showed his face in the kitchen while shaving. "It's another beautiful day." "Good morning." "It really is a lovely morning," Emily replied while handing her husband coffee. "Did you sleep well last night? I was worried because you seemed a little tired recently." "I'm fine. The work content has changed a bit, and it just takes time to get used to it," Michael smiled reassuringly. "But it's not a bad change. I feel more fulfilled than before, actually." After breakfast, the two parted at the front door as usual. Michael, dressed in his navy suit, left for work by car with his briefcase in hand. Emily watched his retreating figure and then began preparing for her own work. The morning shift at Fresh Mart was busy as usual. Tuesday was sale day, and many customers came from the morning. Emily welcomed customers one after another at the register while enjoying brief conversations with each of them. Regular customer Mrs. Johnson taught her new recipes, and young mothers in the neighborhood talked about their children's growth. Such casual interactions added color to her day. "Emily, you look very happy lately," her colleague Sarah spoke to her during break time. Sarah was a mother of 3 children. "Did something special happen?" "Something special?" Emily tilted her head. "I don't think anything has changed. But your expression is brighter. You look more lively than before," Sarah smiled gently. "You're getting along well with your husband." "I'm envious." Emily thought for a moment before answering. "Well, Michael has been coming home earlier recently, and we've been spending more time together. That might be what makes me happy." "How lovely. To be able to say that after 10 years of marriage." "Sometimes I think it would be easier if my husband came home late," Sarah laughed wryly. "But really, watching you two as a couple is heartwarming. I can clearly see that you cherish each other." When Emily finished work at 2 p.m. and returned home, she noticed something strange. The living room, which had definitely been messy when she left that morning, was neatly tidied up. The magazines she had left scattered on the coffee table were stacked neatly, and the sofa cushions were carefully arranged. "Huh?" Emily tilted her head and walked to the kitchen. The same scene awaited her there. When she had hurriedly finished the dishes that morning, she had placed them somewhat carelessly, but now they were properly stored in the cupboard. The sink was also shining as if it had been polished. In the evening, when Michael came home, Emily asked indirectly, "Welcome home. How was your day?" "Pretty good. The new project is starting to get on track, so I'm feeling fulfilled," Michael answered while loosening his tie. "By the way, I noticed the house was very neatly tidied up," Emily said casually. "Did you perhaps come home during lunch break?" Michael showed a momentarily confused expression, but quickly returned to a smile. Actually I woke up early this morning and did a little cleaning before you left. I felt like it." "Really? I didn't notice." "Thank you." However, Emily felt a slight sense of unease. Certainly, Michael had been up before she woke that morning, but she hadn't seen him doing any cleaning. Moreover, he usually wasn't such a methodical personality. Of course, he wasn't completely messy, but he wasn't the type to pay attention to detailed organization either. The same thing happened the next day. When Emily came home from work, the house was more organized than it had been in the morning. The laundry was neatly folded and stored in the closet, and there were traces that the floor had been vacuumed. "You cleaned up again," Emily expressed her gratitude to Michael that evening. "Since you always work hard with housework, I should help a little too," Michael showed an embarrassed smile. "Besides, a clean house feels better." Emily's heart was warmed by her husband's kindness. Certainly, Michael had become more cooperative with housework recently than before. At the beginning of their marriage, he hadn't had the idea that men doing housework is an expression of love for their wives, but perhaps he had changed over 10 years. However, a small question remained. While Michael was getting ready in the morning, Emily was also simultaneously preparing breakfast and doing simple cleaning. In that limited time, would he have had the leisure to do such careful tidying? Moreover, considering his personality, suddenly becoming so methodical seemed a bit unnatural. On the weekend, Emily had a casual conversation with Dorothy in the yard. "Michael's been coming home early lately," Dorothy said with a smile. "I feel like he used to be later before." "Yes, it seems his work content has changed." "I'm happy about it too," Emily answered. "That's a good thing. Time spent as a couple is important. When my husband was alive, I think I should have treasured our time together more," she said, thinking back. Dorothy's words made Emily feel grateful for their current life anew. Although there was a slight sense of unease, it was certain that Michael was cherishing their home more than before. That must be a good change for their marriage. That night, before getting into bed, Emily looked at her own expression in the mirror while brushing her hair. As Sarah had said, she certainly looked more lively than before. Perhaps Michael's increased time at home was bringing new brightness to their married life. Although she felt a small sense of unease, her gratitude for her husband's kindness and thoughtfulness was much greater. Thursday morning was a bit chillier than usual. Emily put on a light cardigan and saw Michael off at the front door. He was dressed as usual in his navy suit, carrying his briefcase toward the car. "Have a good day. Work hard today too." "Thank you. You be careful too." Michael turned around and waved, then started the car engine and drove out onto the street. As Emily was about to close the front door, she heard a voice from the neighboring house. "Good morning, Emily." When she turned around, Dorothy was standing in her yard. Wearing a gray cardigan, she had her usual warm smile. Emily walked over to the front gate. "Good morning, Dorothy. You're up early again today. When you get older, you become an early riser." "But I don't dislike it because the morning air feels good," Dorothy showed the gardening scissors in her hand. "Today I plan to tend to the roses." The two were enjoying light morning conversation. They were talking about a new restaurant in the neighborhood and a community event to be held next week when Dorothy showed an expression as if she had just remembered something. "Oh yes, Emily. May I ask you something?" "What?" "Does Michael work remotely?" Emily tilted her head. "No, he works at the office. He commutes every day." "Why?" Dorothy showed a slightly troubled expression. "Oh, really? But I've been seeing him at home during the day." "What?" Emily was surprised. "During the day?" "Yes. For the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've seen Michael come back home around noon several times after leaving in the morning. At first I was worried that he might be sick and had left early, but it's been continuing almost every day." Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. "Coming back around noon." "That's right. Around 11 or 12 o'clock, I'd say. I often look outside while preparing lunch, so I notice well. That's why I thought he had switched to remote work." Dorothy showed a worried expression. "Could it be that I was mistaken?" "No, that's not." Emily's mind was racing. Michael at home during the day. That would explain why the house was being tidied up. But why was he hiding this from her? "Emily, are you all right? You look pale," Dorothy called out worriedly. "Oh yes, I'm fine. It must be some mistake," Emily smiled to cover up. "I haven't heard anything from Michael about coming home during the day." "I see. It might be my mistake. My eyesight has been getting worse lately." Dorothy also looked relieved. "But if he's not feeling well, don't hesitate to call on me." "Thank you. But really, everything's fine." Emily returned home after parting with Dorothy, but her heart was filled with complicated feelings. Dorothy couldn't have been mistaken. She observed the neighbors' activities well. Besides, It would explain why the house was being tidied up. Why was Michael hiding the fact that he was home during the day? Could he have been fired from his job? Or was there a more serious reason? Various speculations swirled in Emily's mind. During work that day, Emily couldn't concentrate. Her conversations with customers at the register were absent-minded, and she nearly made change incorrectly several times. During break time, Sarah spoke to her. "Emily, you seem down today. Did something happen?" "There's just something on my mind," Emily answered vaguely. She couldn't consult with a colleague about what she had heard from Dorothy. "Is it about your marriage?" "Tell me anything. I'll listen if you want." "Thank you, Sarah. But it's nothing serious. I'm probably just overthinking." When she finished work at 2 p.m. and came home, once again the house was neatly tidied up. This time, the laundry she had thrown into the washing machine that morning was neatly folded and stored in the closet. If Michael was home during the day, this would explain it. In the evening, when Michael came home, Emily hesitated to ask him directly. However, her desire to know the truth won out. "Welcome home, Michael." "I'm home. How was your day?" "Actually, Dorothy asked me something strange this morning." Emily chose her words carefully. "Whether you were working remotely." Michael's expression stiffened for a moment. "Remote work? Why would she ask that?" "She said she's seen you at home several times during the day." Emily observed Michael's reaction carefully. "That's..." Michael showed a slightly troubled expression. "It must be a mistake. I'm at the office every day." "Right. That's what I told her too," Emily agreed on the surface, but the doubt in her heart was growing. Michael's reaction was clearly agitated. That night, even after getting into bed, Emily couldn't sleep. Looking at Michael, who was breathing quietly beside her, she continued thinking about what he might be hiding. Was it a work problem, or was there another reason? The next morning, Emily made a significant decision. To learn the truth, she would take the day off work and wait at home. After seeing Michael off as usual, Emily immediately called Fresh Mart. "Sarah. It's Emily. Could I take the day off today? Something urgent came up." "That's fine. Are you feeling unwell?" "No, it's a family matter." "Sorry for the inconvenience." "Don't worry about it. Contact me if anything happens." After hanging up, Emily made a plan. If Michael really came home during the day, she needed to confirm it with her own eyes. However, rather than confronting him directly and being lied to, it would be better to see what was actually happening with her own eyes. Emily hid in the bedroom closet with the door slightly open so she could see the living room. If someone entered the house, she could observe from here. Emily waited in the closet, holding her breath. Just as her knees were starting to hurt, the moment finally came. At 11:45 a.m., she heard the sound of the front door opening. Emily's heart pounded violently. Dorothy had been right. Michael was coming home during the day. However, the next sound she heard surprised her even more. It was a woman's voice saying, "Hello." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Michael was having an affair. During the day, he was skipping work and bringing a woman into the house. The trust they had built over 10 years of marriage felt like it was crumbling in an instant. "Thank you for coming," she heard Michael's voice. "You're welcome. But are you really sure it's okay to keep this secret from Emily?" the woman's voice continued. Emily was shaking with anger. The other woman was brazenly mentioning her name. Moreover, she was confirming that they should keep it secret. This was clearly a planned affair. Emily stood up and was about to burst out of the closet. However, at that moment, she realized she recognized the woman's voice. She had heard it somewhere before. And the next moment, Emily was stunned. It was her friend Jessica's voice. Jessica worked as a business consultant and had been Emily's close friend since college. With her bright and proactive personality, she was always someone who encouraged Emily. But why was she here with Michael, and secretly from Emily, no less? Various speculations swirled in Emily's mind. Could Jessica and Michael be having an affair? To think she was being betrayed by someone she thought was a close friend. However, something didn't add up. She believed that neither Jessica nor Michael were the type of people who would do such a thing. Unable to move from inside the closet, she continued to hear the conversation from the living room. "It's a secret from Emily," Jessica's voice was heard again. "But are you really sure about this? Hiding something this big?" "I know," Michael answered. "But it's still too early. I want to talk about it after the preparations are more complete." "Preparations? Thank you, I couldn't have gotten this far without you." Michael's voice was filled with deep gratitude. Emily was confused. This conversation was clearly different from an affair. There didn't seem to be any romantic feelings between the two. Rather, it sounded like they were talking about some kind of project. "But Michael, it's been 3 months, Jessica continued. "Emily is a very smart person, so I think she'll notice eventually. Wouldn't it be better to be honest with her?" 3 months? Emily murmured to herself. It had been exactly 3 months since Michael's homecoming time had become earlier and the house had started being tidied up. "You're right. But as you know, Emily is always considerate not to hurt my pride. If she knew about the current situation, she would surely worry." Michael's voice was a bit subdued. "Michael," Jessica's voice became gentle. "Emily is your wife. I think you two can overcome any situation together. Besides, what you're doing now is nothing to be ashamed of." Emily listened intently. What exactly were they talking about? It was certain that it wasn't an affair. But then what did he need to hide? "I was laid off 3 months ago," Michael began speaking in a heavy tone. Emily's eyes widened. Laid off? Michael was unemployed. But I couldn't tell Emily. For 10 years, I've supported our household. I didn't want to cause her that kind of worry. "But you're working hard every day," Jessica said encouragingly. "The startup preparations are going smoothly, and the loan application was approved, right?" "Startup?" Emily was surprised. She had never heard of Michael considering starting a business. "Yeah, thanks to you. Without you, I couldn't have written the business plan or gotten through the loan interview." Michael's voice was filled with gratitude. "I just helped a little." "The ideas and passion are all yours," Jessica replied. "But why did you choose Emily's dream of a bakery cafe?" Emily's heart leaped. Bakery cafe. That was certainly her long-time dream. In college, when they talked about future dreams, Emily had said, "Someday I want to open a small bakery cafe and create a place loved by the neighbors." However, she had given up on it as unrealistic and hadn't thought deeply about it since. "Since we got married, Emily gave up her dream to support me." Michael's voice was shaking. "For 10 years, she's been working for my sake, holding back on what she wanted to do. Now, I want to make her dream come true." "How wonderful," Jessica answered with a moved voice. "Emily will surely be delighted." She heard the sound of papers being shuffled. "Emily's Dream Bakery," Michael read aloud. "How's this for a store name?" Tears overflowed from Emily's eyes. Michael had remembered her dream. Not only that, he was working alone to make it happen. "Perfect," Jessica answered. "The business plan is excellent, and the location is ideal. I'm sure it will be successful." "Thank you so much, Jessica. Without you being a business consultant, I couldn't have done this." "You're welcome. But I think you should tell Emily soon. She could participate in the planning too, and I'm sure she'll come up with wonderful ideas." Emily couldn't stand it anymore. She quietly came out of the closet and headed to the living room. She hesitated for a moment at the door, but gathered courage and opened it. "Michael." In the living room, Michael and Jessica were sitting on the sofa with a business plan spread out on the table. Both looked at Emily with surprised expressions. "Emily, why are you home?" Michael stood up in a panic. "I took the day off." Emily had tears in her eyes. However, they weren't tears of anger but tears of emotion. "I heard everything." "Everything?" Jessica looked worried. "About the layoff, the startup preparations, and," Emily continued with a trembling voice, "about trying to make my dream come true." Michael bowed his head. "Sorry, Emily. For hiding it." "But..." Emily ran to her husband and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," Emily said while crying. "For remembering my dream and trying to make it happen." "Emily," Michael also held his wife back while shedding tears. "I didn't want to worry you. But I wanted to fulfill your dream." Jessica also watched the reunion with tears in her eyes. "But why did you need to hide it?" Emily looked up at her husband's face. "We're married. We can overcome anything together." "I know. But I had my pride as a man who had been supporting you for 10 years. I was ashamed to let you know I'd lost my job," Michael answered honestly. "Such a thing," Emily placed her hand on her husband's cheek. "I know you've been working hard. Besides, you're working hard for my dream now, aren't you?" The three embraced for a while, savoring the emotional reunion. On the table, the business plan for Emily's Dream Bakery was spread out, containing the crystallization of Michael's 3 months of effort. "From now on, let's work together, the three of us," Jessica suggested. "Let's incorporate Emily's ideas too and create the best bakery cafe." Emily looked back and forth between her husband and close friends' faces and smiled from her heart. She was a little sad that there had been secrets, but knowing the reason now, her love for Michael had deepened even more. "Yes," Emily answered firmly. "The three of us will create the best store." After that, Michael confessed everything. About receiving sudden dismissal notice from the company 3 months ago, about lying because he didn't want to worry his family, and about studying business every day at the library and cafes. He also honestly told her about Jessica volunteering to help as a business consultant and about the loan application being approved. "Every day, after you went to work, I went to the library to read business management books," Michael explained while holding his wife's hand. "In the afternoons, I went to look at potential store locations or had meetings with contractors. That's why I often came back home around noon. That's why the house was neatly tidied up." Emily felt like everything was connected. "That's right. I thought I should at least do the housework before you came home," Michael smiled wryly. "But in the end, I was still deceiving you." Emily shook her head. "You weren't deceiving me. You were working hard for my sake." 6 months later, Emily's Dream Bakery opened on the corner of Main Street. The small store with white exterior walls and a blue awning was exactly as Emily had dreamed. Inside, handmade wooden tables and chairs were arranged, wrapped in a warm atmosphere. On the morning of opening day, Emily stood nervously in front of the store. Michael was making final preparations in the kitchen, and Jessica had rushed over with a congratulatory flower arrangement. "Are you ready?" Jessica smiled. "I'm a little nervous, but I'm fine." Emily took a deep breath. At 9 a.m., the opening moment finally arrived. When Emily unlocked the door, the first customer entered. It was Dorothy. "Congratulations, Emily," Dorothy smiled happily. "If I hadn't mentioned Michael that time, such a wonderful thing might not have happened." "No, Dorothy," Emily answered with gratitude. "Thanks to you, I was able to learn the truth. And I also understood how much my husband loves me. You two are truly a wonderful couple." Dorothy narrowed her eyes. "Being able to overcome difficulties together instead of hiding them." That day, many local people visited Emily's Dream Bakery. The bread and cakes Emily baked with all her heart were very well received, and the coffee Michael brewed was also praised. Jessica decided to visit the store once a month as a management advisor, and the three would discuss future developments together. In the evening, after seeing off the last customer, Emily and Michael were exhausted but filled with a sense of fulfillment. Today was a great success. Emily leaned against her husband's arm. It's thanks to you. Your dream became our dream, Michael stroked his wife's hair. But if you had talked to me about this from the beginning, Emily said a bit sadly, I could have prepared together from the start. You're absolutely right. I was wrong, Michael looked at his wife. But I learned something from this experience. What? A true family isn't about performing perfection, but about accepting each other, including our weaknesses, and growing together, Michael answered quietly. Emily nodded deeply at her husband's words. Certainly, their relationship had become deeper during these 6 months. By sharing difficulties instead of hiding them, their bond as a married couple had become even stronger. From the store window, they could see the townscape dyed by the setting sun. They could also see Dorothy tending to flowers in her garden. Emily felt the joy of being able to create a store loved by many people as a member of this small community. Whatever happens from now on, let's overcome it together, Emily held her husband's hand. I promise, Michael embraced his wife. This time I won't hide anything. Let's share everything. Emily's dream bakery was a symbol of a couple's dream realized by overcoming difficulties. And from that day when they learned the truth, Emily and Michael truly became life partners in every sense.